my wonderful readers. How are we doing this week? Hopefully everyone made it through unscathed. It was definitely a crazy week. But we're not going to talk about anything like that. We're going to entertain ourselves for a couple of minutes by going into the next couple of chapters of A Taste of Your Own Magic. I'm so excited. I love reading this series. And I like that you guys are out there watching. That really makes me feel good. Like I said before, I look forward to this every week because I love sharing this time with you guys. So let's get on to it. We are on chapter. Oops. Oh, I already read ahead. Sorry. Chapter 3. Let's do this. After a night of uneasy and way too little sleep, Sage dragged herself into the blazing sunlight. Decision day. She knew what lay ahead, but didn't make the steps any easier as she headed towards the parking lot to meet her ride. Don't you have a car? Gray tossed the helmet at her. Way too early in the morning and far too little caffeine to jumpstart her brain, Sage lacked the wit to reply to Gray's brusque greeting. He'd been kind enough to drive her into the office, so it was probably best to hold her tongue. A.S.S.E.T's headquarters were miles away in the heart of downtown, and Sage had no choice but to test her semi-immortality by riding on Gray's motorcycle. Either that or spend hours riding the bus and making transfers to get there. Cars cost money, she mumbled, as she fought to get the helmet over her head. So much for doing her hair this morning. All that effort to present herself had gone to waste. Obviously. Gray seemed to be amused by her uncoordinated effort. She didn't need to see his face, though. Hidden behind the visor of his helmet, she knew he was smiling. So, she let the word hang in the air. He had a snarky reply coming. She'd die of shock if he didn't. That was their language. Her and Gray, when they weren't sniping at each other, they had nothing to say. You're gonna need more than a bus pass to work at A.S.S.E.T. Then they're gonna have to pay me well, or provide some kind of company car. She hadn't really sussed out the minutia. With her old job, she'd just ridden a single bus, in and out every day. A.S.S.E.T would have her going on excursions all over the city. Listen to you already demanding things, as if you feel you're a shoo-in for the job. There it was. The snark she'd been waiting for. Until she had a cup, possibly two, of coffee, she wouldn't have the processing power needed to take him on. But when she did, words would clash, and they could duel properly. May the best tongue win. Sage mounted the bike. She'd already had the job. All she had to do was face Ava and accept it, though the thought made her seriously consider going back to the accounting firm. Her old boss might have been a troll, warts and all, but Ava was a ballbuster and a category all her own. If only she could return to Phoenix and work for Mark. He'd be such an awesome boss. But everything in Phoenix would remind her of her mother. Time would heal those wounds, no doubt, and maybe someday she could return, but not now. Gray sped out of the parking lot, and Sage instantly regretted asking him for a ride. She would never get used to the feeling of being so close to death with nothing to protect her but a helmet. He weaved in and out of traffic, narrowly missing the rearview mirrors as he squeezed in between cars. Tighter she held on, the faster he seemed to go, as if her fear fueled him. She could just imagine the shit-eating grin behind his helmet as he sped narrowly between a line of cars. Sage reminded herself over and over, whispering like a mantra, I'm immortal, I'm immortal, I'm immortal, I'm not going to die, I'm immortal. The rational part of her mind did little to override the pure terror. She clung to Gray tightly, not caring if she pierced again. There I go again, tripping over my tongue. Let's try that again. She clung to Gray tightly, not caring if she pierced his leather jacket or his skin with her nails. When he finally pulled into the A.S.S.E.T parking garage and whipped the bike into a small parking spot, she leapt off, ready to kiss the ground. You won't die on my bike. But don't count on your immortality to keep you safe from what's beyond those doors. More taunting. More snickering laughter. It was as if it was his primary goal in life to get her to smack him. And as he exchanged his helmet for that stupid fedora he always wore, he nearly did. The only thing stopping her was the knowledge that if she did, he would win this round. He would walk away the champion button pusher, able to get under her skin. Now, she had to remain calm. Fight the urge to beat him physically. The mental game was where the true champion battled. Let's get this over with. Sage took the lead, keeping her head held high as she headed to the elevators. Outwardly, she hoped to give off the impression of casual courage, an empty facade, but armor enough against anyone who might question her intentions. Fake it till it's real. She'd made up her mind. This was happening. But that didn't negate the apprehension of actually committing herself to what might be eternity. Slow, controlled breaths helped as she rode the elevator to the top floor. When the doors parted, another wave of panic nearly drowned her. Rena had been a fixture during her short time with A.S.S.E.T. She'd manned the reception desk and worked as Ava's assistant. She died in Sage's arms. Of course, of all the things she worried about, Sage had given little thought to how she felt seeing that reception desk again. But there it was, the first thing in view from the elevator. In Rena's place sat a new girl, just as young. Just as fresh-faced as Rena had been, though missing the awesome blue hair. "You sure you're ready for this?" Gray pushed her forward and took the lead towards Ava's door before Sage had the chance to say hello to the new assistant. She did at least give a cursory glance to make sure the mark of the tarot was there on her left wrist. A real mark this time, not the tattoo. She wasn't about to let herself be fooled again. Gray disappeared into Ava's office. Sage gave herself one last minute to center herself and stop her knees from trembling before she followed across the threshold. Clacking away at the keyboard, the head of the Las Vegas Asset Office, Ava Masters, had her nose buried so deeply in the screen it looked like she were trying to push through a portal. "Finally made a decision?" Ava asked. Her grand high pooboness didn't bother to look up from the screen. After their last meeting, and knowing how important she was to the organization, Sage expected at least for some form of acknowledgement. A smile, a secret nod, a code word perhaps. Something to show that they had a connection that went beyond the typical subordinate and boss relationship. But then Ava never treated anyone with respect. Showing Sage any form of deference might draw unwanted attention. Sage nodded and replied, "Yep," with a strained sigh. "Good. I expect you sworn in and suited up before the end of the day. See Devin for your training schedule, and since you worked so well with Mr. Maddox on your last mission, I'm making him your partner." "Wait, what?" Gray choked on his words. "Mr. Maddox, when I want your input, I'll ask for it. You were all too eager not a week ago to partner with Miss Cynwrig when you plotted your last little trap. I think it's only fitting my two biggest troublemakers are easy to track down together." Sage snickered to herself. Working with Gray wasn't ideal, but seeing how much it bothered him made it worth it. Despite his annoying personality, he was as knowledgeable as they came, and more than capable with a machete. They might not like each other, but she had no doubt he'd have her back when needed. To his credit, though, he ground his teeth loud enough for the whole office to hear. But Gray kept his mouth shut. Ava hadn't earned the reputation of Queen High Bitch for nothing. "Before I sign on the dotted line," Sage said, staring down at the back of Ava's monitor, pausing just long enough to see if the director would look at her, "I want assurances that I'm not going to be held prisoner here." Ava slammed the laptop lid closed, and Sage instantly regretted her choice of words. The icy glare of her new boss sent Sage a few paces back, ready to make a hasty retreat. "Let's get one thing straight, Miss Cynwrig. My job here is not to replace your mommy. And don't you ever presume to talk to me as if I'm one of your girlfriends either. I don't care about your feelings, and what you want is inconsequential. My job is to ensure that the well-oiled machine of A.S.S.E.T runs smoothly with minimal deaths among my agents." Sage gulped audibly, earning a look of pure satisfaction from Ava as she continued the lecture. "When we first brought you in, assigning you barracks was to facilitate your protection. You're as green as they come, and you have no training, which makes you a liability. Of all the new agents here, you should have more respect for the sacrifices of our people and the work that we do." The words struck harder than any blow she might have been dealt by hand, salt in the wound in the wake of Miranda's death. One day, Sage would learn to keep her big mouth shut. She wouldn't soon forget the speed at which Ava had put her in her place. "However, if you feel that our protection is infringement on your freedom and rights, I pray death does not find you or that human roommate of yours. If it does, so be it. All the snark had left Sage. Even if she could think of a reply, she knew better than to tempt fate. Ava's office was practically a museum of ancient weaponry, easy to grab and deadly in practiced hands. Her mouth hung open stupidly as she watched Ava lift the laptop screen and resume working. When you finish with Devon, I'll administer your oath personally. Sage gulped again, imagining a knighting, only with Ava holding that large axe that sat in the corner of her office, threatening to remove her head if she ever talked back like that again. Gray tugged at her arm. Time to go, newbie. One last thing, Ava called to them. I have the perfect assignment for our headstrong little recruit here. You two will be starting immediately. Chapter 4. Devon at least looked pleased to see her. The moment his silvery eyes caught sight of Sage, his whole face lit up. How you holding up, kid? He welcomed her into the training room with a hug that nearly crushed her ribs. This was the kind of greeting she'd hoped for, a warm and inviting one. Any other reason to solidify her enlistment to the agency? The 5 minutes she'd spent with Ava had her seriously questioning the sanity of her decision, and Devon more than made up for it with the joy that he showed her when he saw her. She managed to escape his python grip and caught her breath. Sage tried to find the words, but came up short. Polite society always expected to hear fine or good in response to a question like that. A no-bullshit kind of guy like Devon appreciated a real answer. She opened her mouth to tell him that she was coping, but the words felt hollow. He spared her having to answer with an excited, Hey, got something for you. Gray cleared his throat. He stopped at the training room door rather than joining their little reunion. I'm going to go check the assignment board. He held his arms stiffly crossed as he set his jaw. His body language practically shouted his displeasure. Being assigned to her as a partner clearly hadn't sat well with him. Not that it mattered. Going against Ava's wishes came at one's own peril. Don't let this one out of your sight. Gray turned to head back down the hallway. I'll be back. Oh, do you have to? Sage teased. Not exactly her ideal partnership, but better the enemy you know than someone stranger. The prospect of their ongoing trolling match kept a smile on her face. We're partners now, newbie. You're going to be seeing so much of me. Gray surprised her, poking his head back into the room for one final taunt. Hey, maybe I can crash on your couch too. We could be roommates. For all his grumbling a moment earlier, he had certainly laid it on thick with that last comment. Maybe he wasn't as angry as she'd thought, or he realized it gave him more time to play. And just like that, the game had moved on to the next level. Gray's laughter echoed down the hallway as if to say, your move. Oh yes, game on. Devon's expression begged Sage to give an explanation. He caught me laughing when Ava assigned him as my partner. Now he wants to punish me, she answered. You two make such a cute couple. Ew, no, just ew, no. This stupid hat Gray always wore was enough to disqualify him as a potential date. Looking like a tool was just surface-level douchebaggery, not even taking into account his abrasive personality. How could Devon even tease her about something so... Ugh, she cringed at the thought. Match made in heaven, Devon chuckled on his way to the bank of lockers that were mounted to the wall. He opened one and pulled out a white box. You'll invite me to the wedding, right? Clearly, having a thick skin was a I can say the word. I can say it. Prerequisite for the job. Even Devon couldn't resist a chance to push her buttons. A smile tugged at the corner of her lips. This was just the kind of thing families did with each other. Another player on the trolling game, though Devon was far more intimidating than Gray. He wouldn't hesitate to drop her on her ass for the sake of training. Challenge accepted. Why am I agreeing to work with you jerks again? Devon crossed the room and presented the box to her. Because you know this is where you belong. Suspicious of what lay inside, she hesitated before opening it. For all she knew, the box could have some kind of a spring-loaded weapon. Hopefully not. Holding her breath, she lifted the lid. Eyes half shut, she squinted to see inside the box. Are you okay? Devon looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Just making sure you didn't booby-trap it. That drew a genuine belly laugh from the ogre. Just open it up. You can't fault me for being cautious, she shrugged, hoping to play off her hesitation as just messing around. Inside the box lay a folded length of crushed purple velvet. "You've earned your place among us," Devon beamed with pride. "Go on, take it." "What is it?" Confusion stunned Sage, leaving her unable to move before figuring out the mystery. Devon had always told her not to let her guard down. It could still be a trap. The material is too thin to be a blanket. A tablecloth, maybe? But that would be an odd gift. Devon's silvery eyes glinted mischievously. He was enjoying this way too much. "I said I'd make you a cape when you earned it, Captain Trainwreck." He remembered! Excitement bloomed across her face so fast it scorched her cheeks. When she'd demanded a cape, it had been a joke. The fact that he'd followed through with it gave her all kinds of feelings she wasn't ready to process. It meant that she had truly proven herself in his eyes. If he believed in her, then she was truly ready to be an agent. Sage whipped the cloak out from the box and twirled around with it before clasping it around her neck. Such a thoughtful and heartfelt gift. The words caught in her throat as she attempted to say thank you. "You earned it back there with Rena. Quick thinking with the knife saved your life. I'm proud to see you put your training into practice." The mention of Rena hit Sage like a bucket of cold water. Death wasn't a thing she could celebrate. Rena had been a misguided girl who had let herself believe that revenge was a noble cause. She needed therapy, not a knife between her ribs. "Hey now." Devon took hold of her chin, forcing her to look into his eyes. "Don't go getting all sad-faced. You did what you had to do. And she won't be the last, I'm afraid." His tone darkened. Devon's honesty always came with a blunt edge, and Sage appreciated that, but it didn't soften the blow. "It's part of the job, I know." Sage let her eyes fall to the deep purple of the cape, admiring the way it caught in the light as she moved. It would be the perfect addition to her game night wardrobe, too. Matt and Josh would love it. Defending yourself in life or death circumstances, definitely, but only when necessary. I promise, Sage, there is more to being an agent, you'll see. But my job is to prepare you for the dangerous times so you don't end up like Rena. His hand left her chin, coming to rest on her shoulder. He gave her a reassuring squeeze. "Just don't wear the cape when you're on duty. Velvet's a pain to clean." At least he gave it to her straight, the good and the bad. "Now, speaking of duty, you still have a lot of learning to do. You fought off a girl your size, no problem, but most creatures you come up against are not going to be like that. They'll be more like the vampire who took a bite out of you." Her wounds had healed, but the skin still felt tight around the scars. Her hand lifted of its own, finding what remained of the teeth marks in her neck. She had been no match for that vampire, and their kind were only the tip of the magical iceberg, which reminded Sage, her new neighbor. He called himself something magical. "Hey, speaking of that, let me ask you a question." "Shoot." Devon angled his head inquisitively. "What's a djinn?" For the first time since she'd known Devon, fear, or something very close to it, reflected back in his steely eyes. "Not someone you should be dealing with just yet. Let's stick to the out-of-shape desk jockeys for now. You can wait a bit before hitting the big-time baddies." He winked and threw a fake punch towards her jaw. She dodged easily and fell into her fighting stance. "I'm a superhero now, remember?" Even when she didn't have a training schedule, there was always a chance that he'd try and teach her a lesson. "I can handle anything." "Oh, that's right. How silly of me." Devon's eyes narrowed. "Faster than a failed autocorrect text?" He ducked down to sweep her legs. She moved out of the way just in time. It took all she had not to laugh at his playful taunts. Devon could be pretty witty off the cuff when he wanted, but she wasn't about to let him throw her off her guard. Keeping her eyes on target, she readied herself for his next move. More powerful than an internet meme, his fist went flying again. Sage deflected. The impact sent her stumbling backwards, and Devon launched into another attack before she could regain her balance. He sliced high, she blocked. He kicked around, she dodged. They danced the dance of war, neither of them pulling punches. Able to kick massive booty with a single shot of espresso? Sage executed a beautiful takedown that sent her confidence soaring. "Nicely done there, Captain Trainwreck. But don't get cocky, kid. Your skills are improving, though." He chuckled. "And before you get out there and face the big-time baddies on the streets, you have to do it right. Swear in, sign on the dotted line. Have the backing of the agency with you." Why does that sound like a trap? She reached her hand out to help Devon up. He glared at her, all but calling her a drama queen with his eyes. No one's twisting your arm. But you're happy to break it, she replied. He shrugged. You'll heal. This place better have good health insurance, because it sounds like I'm going to need it. You're a Terra. Devon crossed his arms as if that was all that needed to be said. The scarred skin at her neck said otherwise, but there was no use arguing that point. So what's my new training schedule looking like? I'm going to put you on a daily regimen for now. When you're not training with me, I want you in the weight room, working those muscle groups. You need to get some strength into those string beans you call arms. Whatever, as long as I get to wear the cape. Sage took the edges in her hand and flapped it like a bird before wrapping herself up like a bat. Gray cleared his throat. She'd been so caught up with Devon that she hadn't heard his footsteps in the hallway. How long had he been standing there listening to their conversation? What is this idiocy? Gray sounded like he was on the verge of laughter. Sage twirled, fanning the edges of her cape as she rounded to face him. A superhero has to accessorize. Caught somewhere between a scowl and a laugh, Gray's face hadn't committed to either look, leaving him with an expression that ruined any seriousness the words he spoken might have said. Let's try that again. Caught somewhere between a scowl and a laugh, Gray's face hadn't committed to either, a look leaving him with an expression that ruined any serious words he might have spoken next. Before he could summon his voice, Sage lifted her head and strolled proudly across the room. If I'm going to pledge my allegiance to the Order, they need to know who they're getting as an agent. She sauntered into the hallway. And so begins the glorious career of Captain Trainwreck. Devon's laughter echoed behind her. Great songs will be sung about my adventures, mark my words. Tears burned in her eyes as she fought to keep a straight face. With her head held high, she marched onwards towards victory. Sage, Gray called out. Mr. Wet Blanket has to have the last word. She turned on her heel and shot him a look that could rival even Ava's icy glare. Don't spoil this for me. I'm having a moment. Okay. He doubled over, hyperventilating as he gasped for air between snorts of laughter. But can you have your moment over there? He pointed as he fought to catch his breath. Ava's office is that way. Damn it. Gray was right, of course, but no way in hell was she giving up the high ground. She wheeled around and catwalked down the opposite side of the hallway, channeling her inner diva, adding a wicked flap of her cape as she passed Gray. Overconfidence was better than letting him feel like he'd taken the wind from her sails. He clapped slowly, sarcasm echoing in each elongated slap of his palms. Are you planning to take any of this seriously? She wasn't about to answer that baited question. Joking aside, this was the hardest thing she'd ever thought to do. Signing over her partially immortal life in service to A.S.S.E.T. So there we go. That is chapter 4. So we did 3 and 4 today. A little bit of comedy between Sage and Devon. I enjoyed that with the Captain Trainwreck. And most of you have seen me wear my Captain Trainwreck shirt, and that is where it came from. That is Sage. She is Captain Trainwreck, and the joke plays out through the whole series. So anyways, let's check and see what's going on in the comments today. See how my friends are doing. Who do we have here? We've got Joe. Hey. This one seems fun. It is. This has got a lot of funny, a little bit more playful moments to it. A little bit less on the drama side that we had in the first book, because there was a lot of the recent death of her mother weighing on her. This one, she's kind of getting to come into her own a little bit, but as she learns through failure a lot, and it's funny watching her fail and to try and play it off, just like today with the cape. We got Regine. Hey, Regine, how we doing? 50 seconds late. Yes, I was on time today, damn it. I was ready to go. I like Sage's growth in this one so far. She has a lot of learning to do. We're going to meet a lot of creatures in this book, and that's going to teach her a lot. And like I said, there's a lot of funny moments as she fails in some of the things that she does, because she has to learn. And that was one thing when I wrote this series. I wanted to make sure I was not creating an overpowered character. I wanted to make sure the character was actually growing. You get a superhero type character. A lot of times they gloss over the learning part, but learning through failure and making mistakes is entertaining sometimes. You know, we like to see our characters stumble a little. And so there's a lot of these moments for Sage as she is really finding her footing in this book. Grab and hold on to the fedora. The stupid fedora. Yes, and she will never stop picking on him for that fedora. His helmet is probably a fuel bucket one. Yes, Regine, it's a cape. Devin made her the cape, which is a callback to book 1, where she did say that she wanted a cape and she wanted it in purple because that was her favorite color. And so Devin, who he's a hard ass, but he's a hard ass who really does love the people that he's training. He really cares. And this just goes to show that he remembered that he made her this stupid promise and he followed through with it. And she was just overjoyed because she realizes this, and is as separate as she's felt and as disconnected as she's felt to the people in the Vegas asset office. She needs this touchstone. So since she can't be in Phoenix with Mark, Devin is kind of the one person that makes her feel okay about working in this totally new environment. A movie montage scene. Oh, which one? Which one would be the montage? You have to clarify that for me. Lost count somewhere in the teens. On the flubs? Yeah, I'm... Look, it's never going to be a perfect reading. This is why I don't do audiobooks. So you get me warts and all. And I hope it's still entertaining for you guys. It's entertaining for me. I'm really enjoying reading for you guys. I like doing this. It's also, it's keeping me in the mindset of Sage, which I kind of need right now because I've been struggling with writing book 5, and I had it about halfway written, and I just wasn't connecting with the plot, and I need to go back and fix something. And so doing this, reading every week, is kind of keeping me in Sage's headspace, even if I'm not writing right now. So when I do get to go back, I will, have the recent history of rereading all of her stories, as well as what I want to do going forward. And it's helping me on that side. It's also entertaining. I look forward to this. Like, Sundays are one of my favorite days because I get to come hang out with you guys for a little bit and read and share some time with you guys and see what you guys think of the chapters. So it's fun. Here you go. I'm doing fine. You're gonna get flubs. I make no qualms about that. You are getting flubs out of me. It's gonna happen. And try to be funny. All right, guys. So that was our 2 chapters for the week. We will be back next week on Sunday as usual. Tell a friend, like, share, subscribe. It always helps. The more people who comment and like and share and all that good stuff, the more people can actually see these and maybe come join us for some of the fun. But I love you guys. Those of you who are always watching, I love you. Take care this week. Hopefully this week we don't have any more crazy going on. If so, turn the TV off. Just turn the TV off and walk away, because I think that's the only thing we can do at this point to keep our sanity. But I will see you guys next week. Have a good week.